This team has invested $2 billion over 8 years in the sport from 2002 to 2009, but they only managed to score 13 podiums and failed to win a single race throughout that time. The failure of Toyota in Formula One is arguably the biggest case of a mammoth car manufacturer getting it completely wrong in the sport. When Toyota announced they were joining F1, it was a matter not of if they'd be world champions, but when, given their enormous resources. But it never fell into place for them. So let me dive into this bizarre case study and pick apart why Toyota completely failed in Formula One. And maybe it'll give the current teams a bit of a lesson on how to win in Formula One. So this goes all the way back to 1999, and Toyota were the third largest car company in the world, building 5.9 million cars every year. They'd enjoyed some great success in the World Rally Championship and Le Mans, which naturally meant Formula One was the next step. So that same year, they announced to the world that they would be entering Formula One as a works team, meaning they would build the engine, gearbox, suspension, chassis, basically everything in the car. Now, this was their first mistake, as usually a new team would first buy an engine from someone else to make their entry a little bit easier and hit the ground running. But nevertheless, they threw millions at building an engine. But then, before they even joined the sport, their engine was useless. Basically, for the 2000 season and beyond, Formula One forced everyone to switch to V10 engines. But Toyota had already spent a boatload building a V12 engine. This meant they had to delay joining the sport until 2002, resulting in an $11 million loss. So without even hitting the track, it was already not going to plan. But they were still hopeful for their debut season in 2002. But it was far from what they were hoping, scoring only 2 points all year to finish 10th in the standings, despite spending more than any other team on the grid, even the juggernauts of Ferrari and McLaren. 2003 and 2004 was a slight improvement, but still completely behind their objectives. But in 2005, they did take some steps in the right direction. They had a great lineup of Jarno Trulli and Ralf Schumacher, allowing them to take 5 podiums as well as a brilliant pole position at the US Grand Prix. But they couldn't have chosen a worse race to do it at after most of the grid couldn't even start the race. But despite this, they still finished 4th in the standings on 88 points and were finally moving in the right direction. So moving into 2006, they were looking to take the fight to the top teams and maybe grab a win or two. But it was not to be. Poor performance at the start of the season meant they sacked their technical director Mike Gascoigne, and things never reached the same level as 2005. From 2006 to 2008, they failed to finish 4th or above, and it seemed time was running out for them. Now, it is important to note they also did not slow down spending either throughout this time. For 2008, they still spent the most of any other team at $455 million, with Ferrari and McLaren close behind. Their pockets may have been deep, but time was surely running out for them. So Toyota's time in F1 had been far from ideal, but come 2009, a new regulation change meant they leaped up to the steep end of the grid. They developed a loophole in the regs using a double diffuser. Now, I won't get into the technicals of it, but long story short, they had a quick car. At the start of the season, they took 3 podiums, 1 pole, and was very close to winning their first race. But as the season progressed, they failed to develop their car and quickly got overtaken by others and finished 5th on 59.5 points. Well, this great disappointment, coupled with the huge effect the 2008 financial crisis had on the Toyota parent company, meant they had to swallow their pride and leave Formula One. And come the 4th of November 2009, they announced to withdraw from the sport with immediate effect. Now, before I continue, I've realised that the large majority of you are not subscribed to my channel. So if you haven't already, make sure to smash that subscribe button if you want to stay in the know for all things Formula One, and to become an even closer part of our community, press that notification bell and enable YouTube notifications to never miss a new upload. Right, now back to Toyota. Despite building a purpose-built track for testing their car, having a state-of-the-art factory, and spending $400 million plus every single year, the results never came. All they managed was 13 podiums, coming at a cost of $154 million per podium. So I'm sure all of you are wondering, what went wrong? What caused them to underperform so much despite everything else being in place to be a historic team? Well, it fell apart for 3 main reasons. But the main reason was the suffocating corporate culture of Toyota. Basically, what I mean by this is, coming from Japan, Toyota was ran in a very different way to the Western teams of Ferrari, McLaren, etc. And well, Toyota wanted to maintain that culture in F1 and were reluctant to adapt. But Formula One is unique in this sense. You need quick and flexible operations with fast decision making, and so this meant communication was very slow between Japan and the race team in Europe. This Toyota culture was also very controlling from the executives and didn't allow for individual skills and ability within the race team. And so these corporate-run decisions became a core reason for their downfall, such as their choice to switch from Michelin to Bridgestone tyres for 2006 for purely commercial reasons. And well, they didn't listen to their technical team who were saying the Bridgestone tyres didn't work on their car design, which inevitably caused worse performance. And then another drawback of this culture was that they frequently blamed the drivers for poor performance. This really showed by the fact within just 4 years between 2002 and 2005, they used 7 different drivers. So essentially, they never took responsibility for the issues of the car and simply believed they needed better drivers. They even fired Cristiano Da Matta after he publicly criticised the car in 2004. And well, this same ignorance translated into how the actual team was structured, which was very inefficient. Instead of locating their headquarters in the UK, a decision almost every other team opted for, they instead located in Cologne, Germany. This was a big mistake as they struggled to recruit the top engineers from the UK. Now, of course, Ferrari don't operate in the UK, but they don't face the same issue as Ferrari are an established team, and therefore attract the best people. They also faced further geographic issues as the team was based in Germany, and the parent company was of course in Japan. Couple this with the controlling nature of Toyota, and what you got was incredibly slow and inefficient communication. And so there were serious lag times between building new developments on the car in an era when aerodynamic development needed to be quick and efficient to keep up. This was the primary reason they failed to maintain development in 2009 and stay in the fight at the front of the grid. And the final reason for their demise was they simply underestimated the scale of the challenge in building a winning F1 team. They essentially thought their success in the World Rally Championship and Le Mans would translate directly into F1, but this couldn't have been further from the truth. Formula 1 in the early mid-2000s was rapidly developing in size and technical know-how, and so the decision to drive straight in as a complete works team was ridiculously ambitious. And so, after the failure of 2002, they immediately hired hundreds more employees. But this still didn't fix much. So a suffocating corporate culture, inefficient team structure, and failure to adapt to the demands of F1 ultimately resulted in their demise. And so, $2 billion later, and they still had pretty much nothing to show for it. Now, since they left Formula 1, they have enjoyed great success in the World Rally Championship and World Endurance Championship, becoming multiple-time champions in both categories since 2014. But I guess the all-important question is, will they ever return to Formula 1? Well, logically with them dominating the WRC, WEC and Dakar, the next step would be Formula 1. But I'm sure they don't want a repeat of what they already went through over 20 years ago. The only sensible way for them to make a return is by diving into a bit of single-seater stuff like Formula E or Super Formula, and then dive back into Formula 1. And well, if they do decide to do that, then at least they won't have any risk of spending as much thanks to the cost cap. Would you guys like to see Toyota return? It would certainly be great to bring in more of the Asian audience, but I'd love to get your take, so make sure to comment that below. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe and smash that notification bell to be reminded of any new videos.